welcome to the WagerTalk Podcast for the week ending June 23rd. We've got a big show tonight as William Bernanke is going to join us from CG Technology. He's the risk manager there, and he's going to talk to us about NBA, baseball, and some early NFL action. We've also got another edition of Handicapper's Corner where Ralph and I is going to talk about the baseball earners and burners. And then Ralph and I are going to preview some Friday baseball action for you. And at the end of the show, best bet time. Mark Seidel's behind the controls. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo. Let's get this party started and bring in tonight's first guest. That is William Bernanke, the risk manager at CG Technologies. You can follow him at the Moneyline Guy on Twitter. And Will, let's clean up some house business. Last week, some big news in the NBA, but before I get to that, I'm going to change the order of the questions for a second. Let's go to the NBA Finals and clear that up from last week. And how did things end for the house with the outcome of the Toronto Raptors winning the NBA championship?
Oh, it was a really good result for us. Toronto winning the series and winning as far as futures as well. We took a lot of Golden State money early and often in that series, even without Durant. That was already known. A lot of bettors were even quoted to me saying how cheap the price is. They're going for a three-peat, all the reasons to bet Golden State. And we really we're looking for Toronto money at some point. We want to have some balance to our action. You don't want to just be lopsided, especially with Golden State. Most times you wouldn't feel comfortable needing any team against them. And it turned out great, and in the future market as well, Toronto winning, because Golden State was a slight liability for the season.
Go ahead.
Will, now let's get back to the NBA and the big trade of AD going to the LA Lakers. Obviously you had posted some future numbers already. They obviously change once that trade is made, and then people come firing away. How much did they change because of that move? And how much, if any, do you think they'll change because of the draft?
Well, a little of both, but certainly staying, ahead of the game is really crucial here, with all these moves being made. The Anthony Davis move, I feel like when you heard that move, you probably felt that it was going to be a big adjustment, correct?
Absolutely. And
right. Right now, looking back at it, taking emotions out of it with Anthony Davis, he's missed a ton of games the last few years. So you have to look at it and say, okay, we know we're going to get Lakers money, but we also know that this guy has not played a full season, maybe in his career. I have to look back. So you want to give people a fair price, but you also don't want to make it where it's like the Lakers are even money. I'm just using that as a number. So you're really ripping people off. You want to balance that, find a happy medium. And then with the draft tonight, it's not going to be too much as far as the futures market here, too much of an effect because it's pretty much a foregone conclusion who's going to be picked of note, the real impact players who may have value to the point spread. But the rest of the draft is pretty much an unknown, and it has to be treated as such.
Will, we always have the honor of having you on every Thursday, and I just want our listeners to know, you're also on the Las Vegas Sports Network with Dave Cokin and myself on Thursdays at 2 o'clock, and it gets archived soon thereafter, right. And you can listen to Will talking about the Thursday night baseball games, where the money has gone, what's happened with the current information for that day. So even if you're not in Vegas and looking, do go to LasVegasSportsNetwork.com. You'll see that show archived shortly after we're done at 3 p.m. Pacific, and you can find out where that money is for that night's, we call it the Behind the Counter segment.
Yeah. And, Will, with the Laker news, have you guys taken any action on the Lakers? We know that people that come from, California every weekend here in Vegas, this is just a 4 or 5 hour drive. They love to come to town. It's a Laker town. They love to bet. Have they reacted to this news of Anthony Davis?
Yeah, they have. I mean, we were at 6-1. and some pretty heavy action brought us to 3-1 now. So I think it's settled in at 3-1, and waiting to see if the Lakers get a Kemba Walker or who they add to their roster to see if they're really a contender or not, on paper at least.
Well, you talked about getting in front of a trade like that and knowing what's going to happen and keeping apprised. Obviously, the other player, probably the most impactful player, I think, this year will be Kawhi and, Toronto or the Clippers. So, when you start hearing rumors, might the line change, or do you just wait until it happens and try to grab it and change the number before any sharps can get in and take action with an old or stale number?
Well, we tried to do that with Mike Conley, and he's in this lesser scale, of course, but we got beaten to the punch there with some Utah money, and it came in, and then that trade was announced not long after the bets came in on Utah for futures, because it was kind of a head scratcher. What Utah? 34-1 or whatever numbers we took. I have to look back, and that was a little. Trying to stay ahead of that was we learned a lesson there. Now, I don't think Utah's much of a threat to win the title, so in that sense, it's not a tremendous. We're not putting ourselves behind the eight ball. But with Kawhi, you have to really just have eyes behind your head, so to speak, and you want to have the market set to a price where if you do happen to be late or you miss something, that at least you're not giving someone a ridiculously balloon price.
Hey, Will, talk to a lot of bookmakers, during the week with the various shows that we do. And when I ask them about baseball, everyone's got the same story so far. The last 2 to 3 weeks have not been good for them. You've got, a lot of favorites that have been winning of late. And we're talking those big favorites that, get home, that, people are hooking them up in run lines, money line parlays, everything else. And then the way the bullpens have been just, falling apart with the overs being so productive. Has it been the same story for you guys? Or baseball not been a good result the last couple of weeks?
The last couple of weeks have been better. Previous weeks before that, towards the end of May, mid to end May, was pretty lousy for us. But most of June hasn't been too bad. We have taken a lot of sharp action on some of those dogs that haven't come in, so that money's offset the parlays and the public money. So we've had a good balance there where we haven't been buried, and actually have had some days, profitable days with that, and profitable weeks. So it's something we see every year. This time of year, especially through May, favorites seem to reign supreme, and then June is sort of comes back. You adjusted the numbers, and who's really tanking, and what teams are contenders, and then you have the All-Star break, and then you're pretty much set with the trade deadline and able to stay ahead of any really bad teams or the maybe underrated teams like the Twins. Now we can price them properly and not get beat up with them.
Marco talked about the totals, and we saw some crazy ass scoring, in the Colorado series, and when those kind of things happen, when you have a run of overs like we have, are you adjusting the numbers and perhaps going to the next higher half with higher juice, or do you just let the market play itself out, knowing that there's going to be a return to normalcy for the most part?
That's a tough one right there. We have to be careful not to give too much to sharps, too much of an over adjustment, because want to stay on key numbers, so overs that would have won are now pushes. That's a real good defense mechanism. The 8.5s to 9s with maybe some juice on the under, that type of thing. And that's a good way for us to combat any of these, the Coors Field type of games. We'll always get some under money in Coors Field. Those games when they played San Diego, we actually needed the over in 2 of the 4 games. I mean, there were under money at 13. Because you don't see a total like that, and sharps will jump at the chance to have a total like that, even though it didn't play out for them. So it's a cat and mouse game, but as long as you stay in your key numbers, you should be okay.
Yeah, that's amazing. You would have, if you just said bet more overs or unders in that series, I would have lost that bet because I would have thought the public would have outweighed the sharps. But that's the thing. You don't need what people don't understand. One sharp can come in and make a bet and equal, $100 bettors. You know what I'm saying? And that's how the books get balanced up in a quick hurry. Will, you guys have had the NFL numbers out for several weeks now. You guys put out week 1 all the way through week 16. How has the betting been going? Is there any patterns that you're seeing now, or is it quieted down? People have picked off the numbers that they thought were off, and now it's just quiet time till we get to preseason.
Well, there's been 3 scenarios I could talk about here that are significant. Where Vikings Giants in week 4, Minnesota's gone from, we opened at 3, they're up to 4.5 now. And we've taken a few Minnesota bets, limit bets on the Vikings. I think it's just a situational play by, one was a public bet, the other was a fairly sharp better. So kind of a mixed bag there. Falcons Seahawks in week 8 has been a great two-way action. We've seen, a couple limit bets on both sides. So that's exactly what we want to see. It kind of reassures us that we put the right number on that game. So we let it play out from now until week 8, see what happens. At least we have a good starting point there. And then the other thing to note, the Buffalo Bills we've taken a limit bet on the Bills in every single week. We have them out from for first week all the way through 16. That's very significant that we have every single game we've taken on the Bills there.
Will, jumping back to what we talked about this afternoon on the radio on ESPN, tell us about those teams. The Browns have Baker Mayfield obviously likes attention, and he keeps keeping the Browns in the headlines. And we talked about earlier a couple teams that have some early liabilities, and can you tell us about those for futures?
Yes, absolutely. The Browns are in our top 5 liabilities to win it all. No surprise there. The other teams not too surprising as well. The Bears, Jaguars, Cowboys, and Raiders, no particular order, are all liabilities to win it all. And there's a reason behind each one. Dave pointed out the reasons for each team, which was really helpful. Is one of them I was kind of stuck on, especially the Jaguars. But Nick Foles, of course, him being there, that's got to be the main one. But also, the Browns they pick up steam every year. They're the social media Super Bowl champs, that's for sure, every season. And any publicity is good publicity for them, it seems, and for us too. I mean, we're always glad to take bets on them, not just because we know we feel like we'll win those bets, but also it's just good for that market, passionate fans, and we like seeing them have attention.
Well, let's shift gears one more time. And again, we talked about this on the radio. That's the only reason I'm bringing this up is you talked about the Women's World Cup and having national TV coverage during the day on these games, talking about the volume. You said the handle was very good for USA Today's win. My question is this. Is the handle on this Women's World Cup like a mediocre MLB game, a good MLB game, or approaching something like a playoff game in basketball?
Today's game was about the same as a mediocre MLB game. We had good two-way action on the side, but we actually needed to draw in that game if we had an ideal result, and it didn't come in. So we had action on both. People who aren't familiar with soccer betting, it's a three-way line, and this is one option. You have a spread as well, but using the three-way line, you have 3 results that can take place, and sometimes for us, one of those results happened to be the only way we can make money, and for today it was the draw, and it didn't come in, but the total, which was bet over, we certainly took much more over money than under money in the U.S. game, and that's not surprising considering they scored 13 goals in their first game. That came through for us, staying at 2-0 there.
Will, what else you guys got going at CG this week?
Oh, we got, of course, the Women's World Cup's about to start their knockout stage, so that's going to be a really big event, a lot bigger than I anticipated, and we're going to have in-running for those games as well. So if you happen to miss the start time or it's during the day and you're busy and you're caught up, you can always bet it as the game's going on. Of course, baseball is in full swing, and we have in-running for that as well. Most games, if not all, certainly the TV games. So if you're late to the party on one of the games you want to bet, you can grab it in running. We have I mean, MLS is starting up again this week. Wimbledon's right around the corner. UFC card this weekend. So it's really endless amount of opportunities to make money, and bet live wagering. So make sure you download our CG app and sign up for an account in one of our books, and so you can start preparing and betting like a pro.
Yeah, and absolutely. And again, we say it all the time, but for our listeners that are not in the state of Nevada, but you're planning a trip to Vegas, the smart way to play, guys, is you go to the book, get their app, download it, put the money in the account, then you can bet the entire time you're here in Vegas. You don't have to live here. You only have to be in the state of Nevada to bet. Make all your bets that way. You don't have to stand in line. You want to go to the nightclubs and party. You want to be at the day club at the pool. Hey, you don't have to be worried about getting to the sports book in time to make the bet. You can do it on your app, and when you're done, when you're ready to check out, just go over to the sports book, and you can withdraw the money right out of your account. Takes as much time as if you were cashing a ticket. That's the way to do it here in Vegas and not fight the lines and have the convenience of being wherever you want to be. Will, as always, great stuff. We appreciate you joining us each and every week. We'll talk to you next week. Will, have a good week, and as I always say, good luck on all of the games except the ones I'm on. But this month so far, you've done pretty well be going against me, Will, so you're welcome.
Well, it's got to stay the course, right?
Yep.
Keep the emotions out of it. But you guys are good. You'll get it going soon.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Absolutely.
Thanks as always, Will. Have a good one. Guys, we're going to step out. When Ralph and I return, it's going to be Handicapper's Corner. Find out those earners and the burners. That's up next on WagerTalk Podcast.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. We're going to head to Handicapper's Corner. Ralph and I are going to take a look at the earners and burners. And Ralph, I'm going to start with talking about the totals, because this baseball season, we talked about it numerous times and how bad the bullpens have been. And those bullpens are having a direct result on over-unders. I've never seen a season like this. And we know that as the season progresses, Ralph, every year, everything's going to come back to, somewhat of, the norm. But right now, there are some teams that you just can't possibly look at with a clear conscience and play an under. They've been there all year, the number one over team in baseball, and that's the Seattle Mariners. This is a team that does score runs, but they give up a ton of runs. If you bet them blindly this season on the over, 51 overs, just 21 unders, 5 pushes. That's a 71% win angle.
Marco, my contribution to this segment is looking at teams since June the 1st. So I'll just chime in with my overs as well as we go through this. Since June the 1st, Seattle's still the number one team. A lot of those trends, you say, go back to normal. Not with the Mariners. They're 14-2-2 to the over since June the 1st.
And this one's a little bit of a surprise. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they are a over team at a 61% win rate. Now, I'm talking about how bad Seattle was. You're jumping 10 percentage points from number 1 to number 2 for 71 to 61. But the Pittsburgh Pirates, 43-27 to the over this year. And the Pirates' problems have come with their middle relief. Their middle relief has been horrible this year. If starters not getting the job done doesn't help. And then when you bring in guys that can't put out fires, well, all of a sudden you got a 4-story alarm with the runs coming in with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Do they hold in that since June 1st as well?
They are actually tied for third since June the 1st. They come in at 12-5. So of the 17 games since the first of the month, 12 have gone over that total.
All right, looking at number 3 on the list is the Atlanta Braves. They're a 61% team as well, and they've got the same record as the Pirates, only they've got a couple more pushes. They're 43, 27, and 5 to the over this year. And this one, Atlanta's gotten some good starting pitching this year, but where they've really had the problems is once they turn it over to the bullpen, Ralph, it has just not been good. And then on the flip side, the Atlanta Braves, a very good offensive team. That's a ballpark where you can score some runs, and it's resulted in overs for the Atlanta Braves.
Well, I can tell you this. Going into June the 1st, the Braves were just over 500. They were actually 29 and 24 over-under. But since June 1st, they have gone 14, 3, and 1 to get them up to that spot where they are year to date.
Now, this next one, I think, is tailed off from the beginning of the season. We'll see how your June numbers are. But the New York Mets, which have been a perennial over team the last couple years, which you think about it, Ralph, the starting pitchers they have, Jacob deGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Matz, you wouldn't you would expect some better pitching, with the Mets, but yet they have still been a over team, and they're another one that once the starter leaves the game, you're holding your breath when that bullpen comes in, and the Mets come in at number 4 with a record of 40 overs, 28 unders, and 6 pushes. That's a 58.8% win rate.
The Mets, I only did the top 4 because there was a significant break. The Mets aren't there, but looking back at their last 10 games, they're still 4-2, 5-2. They're still 6-3 over-under their last 9 games.
All right. Now, if you've got the overs that are cashing, that's got to mean there's some unders as well. But you're going to see that the top team for overs was a 71% rate. The top team for unders is going to be 65%, so big jump. But then from first to second, way big jump. You're going to go to 58%, as obviously the overs are not coming in at a clip that they are for the overs, the unders, I should say. So let's start it off with the number 1 under team, and that number 1 under team is the Cincinnati Reds. And the Cincinnati Reds for the season, Ralph, how about 46 unders, 24 overs, just 2 pushes. If you've been playing the unders with the Reds, a nice 65.7 win percentage.
Marco, I tweeted this out today. The Cincinnati Reds, their last 15 games, they are 1-14 over-under.
1-14 to the under.
Under their last 15 games.
And that got them to the head of the pack, which if you take that 1-14 away, Ralph, that would have put them at 32 unders, 23 over. So they were still an under team, but not to the percentage that they were. The next team, this one doesn't surprise you because when you think of the Tampa Bay Rays, we always think about a team. It's a race to 3, and their pitching's, always good. Now, this year they have shown some more offense, more so than any other season, but they still come in as the number 2 under team in Major League Baseball, and their unders are 40 unders, 29 overs, and 5 pushes for 58% for the number 2 spot.
And number 3 on my list, going 6-12 since the first of the month.
All right, so definitely hanging with the pattern there. All right, this one here surprises me, Ralph, because this team has not had good pitching this year, and it is your Cleveland Indians. They are the number 3 under team this year, 40 unders, 31 overs, 2 pushes. That brings them in at 56.3. A little profit there, obviously, on Cleveland. I'm going to have a feeling that this team must have jumped up into the rankings in that June. No?
Well,
because the bullpen was so bad for so long.
My worst record is 6-12. So if they were, they might have just been under there and still been an under team, but not in one of my top 3s.
All right. This is a team that's, they got a big piece back this week with Mike Clevenger. So start when he came back. Maybe they let him go an inning too long.
Well, he made an awkward today. You mean Well,
Clevenger came back earlier. I didn't see today's game.
Yeah, he pitched okay today. They made Dave was commenting, because Dave was on him earlier on the Las Vegas Sports Line, that the Indians just look so lackadaisical. He pitched much better today. The first game he came back, he made an awkward landing off the mound and came out early. They were worried about him going on the IL.
Didn't Bieber go today?
Oh, Clevenger goes tomorrow.
Yeah.
Clevenger goes tomorrow. So you were talking about Clevenger, my bad.
Yeah.
And he did make an awkward step. He is going to still go tomorrow. He's going to give it a try.
Yeah, but that last outing, he was pitching decent, and then I think he had like 90-some pitches, first one back off the DL, and when he went his last rehab start, he only had 67 pitches. So when Dave and I talked about him the day that he was pitching, we thought he would probably go about 75 pitches, in his return. So we were surprised that they let him go as many as he did. But that's a big boost for the Indians to get a big gun back, because if he can regain the form that he had those first 2 games of the season before he got hurt. This is a guy that was, he didn't give up any runs in his first 2 starts, and he's got good stuff. So hopefully for you Indians fans, Clevenger can get it turned around. The number 4 team for the unders, and this is another one that they are so dynamic on both sides of the baseball. They've got, one of the best, starting pitching rotations in baseball, and yet they've got so much power in their lineup hitting. Now, they have had some injuries in the lineup as far as the hitters go, so that could be part of this with them being an under, because it's not a team you would expect to be an under, and that is our own producer, Mark Seidel's Euston Astros, number 4 team for the unders, 41 unders, 32 overs, just 2 pushes, and that brings them in at 56.2% if you've been betting them on the unders. And I know recently that's been the trend.
The other team that made my top under list since the first of the month were the LA Dodgers, going 4-12. Obviously, you want to talk about a pitching staff that compares with any. And the other team I'm going to mention, that jumping back to the overs, that made my list that didn't make year to date, San Diego's 12-5-1 over-under their last since the first of the month.
Well, four of those games were that series in Colorado. Yeah,
but interestingly, San Diego's 12-5, Pittsburgh's 12-5, and they meet this weekend. So we'll see if that over trend continues in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely, and you might just be getting the best bet from somebody in this room in that Pittsburgh game a little later. Really? We don't talk about it, and Ralph's got, well, I'm on a side. I think you might be on a total. No. Oh, boy, this is going to be interesting when we get to that one, because we don't talk of what our games are beforehand, so here we are live just talking about something, and I was teasing my play, and Ralph's going, oh, that's my play. I have a game.
We'll see. It could be the same play.
It could be the same side, or it could be opposites. I don't know. We'll find out in the best bet section. You'll have to stay tuned. Ralph, you have anything else you want to share with us here in the Handicapper's Corner?
Yeah, I'm going to just run down some of the best records, run line and overall. And, since the first of the month, again, you have to remember, you hear some of these records and you say that's not great, but when you're a dog and you're winning these games, it's what the profit is, not what the record is. That's the difference when you're betting the lines. The number 1 team since June the 1st, the Atlanta Braves, plus 9.8 units at 14-4. Followed by the LA Angels at plus 6.2 units. They're only 11-7, but you win a few games as a dog, they're up there. Cleveland plus 5.5 at 11-5. Texas plus 5.4 units at 11-8. The worst teams, Baltimore minus 9.8 units, going 3-14. Your Pittsburgh Pirates minus 7.3 units at 5-12. Tampa Bay is minus 6.9 units, going 8-11, and Detroit minus 5.7 units, going 4-12. Jumping over to the run line, I'm just going to give you the top 2 and bottom 2. It's been a long time for the Washington Nationals to get it together, but they have. And on the run line since the first of the month, this is the biggest profit out of any category. They're plus 10.1 units. If you bet Washington on the run line, they're 13-3. Cleveland number 2 at 10-6 plus 4.8. On the flip side, Toronto and San Diego, the bottom 2 teams. And lastly, going over the scoring since the first of the month, the Braves are averaging 7.39 runs per game. Colorado 6.53. The LA Angels 5.89. And on the flip side, we talked about Cincinnati 1-14 over under. Well, that means they're averaging number 30 in baseball, 3.2 runs per game since the first of the month. Baltimore, 3.29, and St. Louis. I look at St. Louis, and I just cannot believe how bad they are offensively. I mean, they played back. St. Louis last week faced a Miami rookie back-to-back games, and they got shut out both games. We often talk about what an advantage the hitters have seeing a pitcher in back-to-back starts. Yeah. Imagine getting shut out in back-to-back starts against a rookie pitcher. Yeah. Just amazing. So those are some numbers, and all my numbers, again, since the first of the month, since the 1st of June.
Last thing I'm going to add for earners and burners, we're just going to take a quick look at the season numbers for the teams. The number one team should be no surprise. They are a little bit of a surprise to be this good, but this is a team that's been just hitting the lights out of the baseball. They've been winning games, and that's the Minnesota Twins. You bet them blindly this year, $100 a unit. You're up $1,960. Now, the number 2 team, this is the surprise team. And this is a team that's been flying under the radar. They've been playing good. They're in a division that nobody's going to give them a second look because of the top team in that division. And when you're in a division behind the Euston Astros and you're in the same state as the Euston Astros, you're going to get lost in the conversation. But that Texas Ranger team, they are the second most profitable team if you've bet them every game this season blindly. And that's because, Ralph, early in the season, this is a team that was a dog a good bit, and they're adding to the profits with those dog numbers.
And again, even since the 1st of June, 11-8 plus 5.4 units. So, if you bet an 11-8 team, you're expecting, in football, 11-8 means you're plus 2.2 units. Yeah. When you're playing baseball and you're a dog, plus 5.4.
Now, here's one of the teams that this year is defying the odds as far as not winning, but we always say you can't make a living playing big favorites. The LA Dodgers are the 3rd most profitable team this year, and you're going to be laying, when they're at home, you're going to be over 200 most of the time, and they're still showing a profit. They are plus 12.6 units on the season right now for the Dodgers. Go the flip side, Ralph. And early in the year, it wasn't this way. And Boston's still down, towards the bottom. Early in the year, the Yankees were there, but they have moved their way up the charts. In fact, the Yankees went from, after those first 2 weeks of the season, when it was Boston and the Yankees down at the bottom, the Yankees are the 7th most profitable team in baseball. Boston moved up the ladder a little bit, but they're still in the negative in a big way, minus 11.1. But they are the 6th worst team. The worst team, as they say, the cream rises to the top. I guess.
Well, Baltimore's just historically bad.
So all right. So what's the opposite of the cream rising to the top? Well, we got something going to the bottom,
and that's the falls to the bottom.
Yeah, you got Baltimore. They're the worst team, and they're tied. I'm sorry, I can't give them the full profit there, or the undefeated thing there for owning the worst record. Both Baltimore and Toronto are tied at minus 18.2 units on the season. We knew Baltimore was going to be bad.
The difference is Toronto's sometimes a favorite, but we saw this past week against the Angels. I mean, people have been fading Toronto of late, and they should. I mean, Toronto 5-12 since the 1st of the month, and I've not seen a game like the Angels the one night. That line moved 40 cents. Yeah. It was Prez's 5% play, and it won, and had to take it down because the line moved so much. And, again, people are learning that this is a different year. I mean, there's, we talk about baseball where the top team has 100 wins and the bottom team has 60, and anyone can win 1 out of 3 games. But the way Baltimore and Pittsburgh now has been fading, and Toronto's been fading, and Detroit's gone through some stretches that Marco, we talked about this off the air. It's been a very chalky season, and a lot of these big favorites have been winning, and the dogs aren't pulling the upsets, and the public just continues to jump on them.
And when you're a guy that loves to play underdogs and don't play the big favorites, you're not going to do well, and that's the story for me in the month of June. Kansas City is the 3rd worst team, and again, the bottom teams are finding their way to the bottom, Kansas City. And Kansas City's on the bottom. Ralph, they just won 3 games as big dogs in their last series in Seattle. I think they took 3 out of 4 there, big dogs. And they're still the third worst team in baseball, minus 16.5 units on the season. So, as you said, the good are good, the bad are just plain horrible.
You know, Marco, as we're talking, I'm looking this up now, and if 200 favorites are usually a loss when you're playing 200 or more favorites. But in baseball this year, they're 105 and 43, so you're only up 7 units. But normally, when you're looking up 200 favorites, you're down money. This year, if you're betting 200 favorites, you're actually up 7 units on the season. So, and 148 games already.
How many net winners is that? I mean, just to show you the difference of what it is when you're laying
105 and 43, 70.9%. So basically, you need 70% for a 200-plus favorite to be break-even. Yeah. So you need to win 7 out of 10 at the break-even stage.
Yeah, unbelievable numbers, historic run for the bettors on these big favorites. All right, Ralph, good stuff as always. We're going to step out. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Handicapper's Corner. Up next, we're going to take a look at some Friday night baseball. Ralph and I is going to break them down for you here next on the WagerTalk Podcast.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. We're going to jump into Friday baseball, and this segment is brought to you by uwager.eu. Want a 50% sign-up bonus? Just use coupon code WT50, and you'll get 50% sign-up bonus when you open an account at uwager.eu. This offer is exclusive to WagerTalk listeners. All right, Ralph, let's start it off. Friday night baseball. We've got the New York Mets. They're going to head to Wrigley Field, play the Chicago Cubs. We've got Jason Vargas on the mound, and he is going to be facing Yu Darvish. The Mets, we know they've had their struggles. Jason Vargas, and right now the overnight line on this game, I'm seeing it. The common number looks to be minus 148 on the Cubs. No total yet, as they don't bring out Wrigley totals till the day of the game. Ralph, Jason Vargas, last start he left the game after 4 innings due to a leg cramp. He had been pitching well for the Mets, surprisingly. He had a 2.39 ERA in his last 9 games. Going back to April 19th. This is a guy that most people like to fade, but he has been pitching very good of late. Darvish, you look at him, and his problems has been the control. When he doesn't have the control, he gets in trouble. He's been pitching well. His last start was his best start, maybe of the season, is he went 7 innings, allowing just 1 run while striking out 10. Throwing it to you on Darvish, in the month of May, his strikeout to walk ratio, Ralph, 40-19, okay? 19's just too high of a number. In June so far, strikeout to walk ratio, and that's the difference in how he's pitching, 18-4.
I think you said it all. I'll throw in this. Number one, it's a 2:20 game, so for those listening tonight, make sure you don't miss out on the early action. You have the Mets coming in town. Of course, Lockett and Chatwood met tonight as we're, it's not yet going on, but they met on Thursday night. And I look at the Mets, I mentioned before, they're 3-13 as a away dog. They've struggled. They're 2-11 on the road during day games, certainly not good. The Cubs at home during day games, though, not what they're accustomed to. They're only 11-8. They're actually down money with an average line of 141. What I'm going to look at is this. You break down Darvish's starts, and, he had 10 strikeouts against the Yankees, I believe, in his last start. And in the 4 games this year that Darvish had 8 or more strikeouts, it's the difference. When he gets guys to strike out and he has command, he's only allowed 5 or 6 runs in 24 innings. So I would look at this as a live betting situation that if Darvish has control early and gets a strikeout or 2 in the first inning, I would be on him because he's coming off that 10 strikeout performance. The 4 times this year he had 8 or more. He's a different level pitcher when he gets those strikeouts. So I'll watch the game, 220. If he's finding control early and gets a few Ks, I'll be backing him. If not, I mean, I'd like to fade the Mets. I'd like to play on the Mets with, like you said, with Vargas playing well. But as bad as they've played on the road, I just can't back them.
No, I can't back them either. And I'm on the Cubs side here. And the other thing with the schedule, Ralph, you look at the Cubs, they came off a long road trip and then had that 2-game interleague series with their crosstown rivals, the White Sox. So they split the series there. I look for this team to get back focused now at home, back into National League play. This is a team that, wants to make their move, get some distance with them in the division race. I think this is going to be a good series for the Cubs. In Darvish, to me, that's the buy sign that last start. I'm just not a believer in Jason Vargas.
Yeah, you look at the Cubs. I mean, they lose to the White Sox 3-1 walk-off fashion in that first game. But everything is better because, you split the series and you beat Lucas Giolito. I mean, the pitcher as pitching as well as anyone. So, despite losing that first game, the Cubs have to be happy with the split because, you lose game 1 and you're playing Giolito. You think, oh, my God, if we get swept against the White Sox, that can change a lot of fortunes. So despite a 1-1 sweep, hindsight, I think it's a positive going forward.
And they're 3-6 in their last 9 games. But as I said, they came off a road trip. The road trip, Ralph, they went to Coors. It's always tough to play at Coors because you're going to use a lot of pitchers in that series. And then after that series at Coors, they got to turn around and go and play the best team in baseball, the LA Dodgers. And they play the Dodgers for a 4-game series. So,
and don't forget, before the Rockies, They had a home series against the Cardinals, who's as fierce a rival as you get in baseball. So you come off that rivalry, you go to Coors, then you go play the Dodgers, and then you play the White Sox in the crosstown. Yeah.
So especially, and we're taping on Thursday night, if the Cubs would somehow lose tonight, because it's a night game we're taping right now, I think that increases the value of the play on the Cubs in Game 2. Moving on to the next one, this should be a fun one. Houston sends Brad Peacock to the mound at Yankee Stadium. James Paxton and Ralph Paxton has just been getting, lit up lately. You look at Paxton, what he did, reputation-wise coming to New York. It's, he's battled injuries. Although his last start, he finally had a good start throwing the gem, but his first 2 starts of June, not good. But his last one was good. Is that the buy sign for him coming off that last one? He had a 7-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio, allowed just 2 runs going 8 innings in that last start. But I don't know. I just look at those other games, and I'm just not sold 100% on James Paxton.
Well, again, the Yankees 22-7 at home, an excellent home favorite, not quite to the Dodgers level. But again, we're talking about Friday's game on Thursday before they play Thursday night, and the Astros are getting a lot of love. I mean, Chad Green's on the mound, and Houston's playing, on Thursday night. Valdez is to the mound. And Valdez is only a 130 dog. Well, Valdez's first 2 starts were at home against Baltimore, no offense. At home against the Blue Jays, no offense. Now you make a road start at New York, and you're plus 130. That's it. But, I have a team in the Astros that have lost 4 straight. Excuse me. They haven't hit well. They've only had 26 hits their previous 4 games. You have the Yankees off 5 straight wins. So if the Yankees win and have that win streak, I like them here. Then you look at Houston and Brad Peacock at home. Peacock has a 3.38 ERA with a 50-11 strikeout walk ratio. Peacock on the road, a 4.11 ERA, 26-13. So he's almost 5-to-1 strikeout walk At home, he's 2-1, giving up 13 walks and only 26 Ks. I'm going to be on the Yankees if the price isn't too high, and especially if they're off a win on Thursday.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that home road dichotomy on Peacock. The other thing I'm going to bring up on him is the fact that they had him pitching from the full windup, and it helped him. You know, he had some mechanical problems before. Then he went on a run after he did that. Now I just think it's a situation where, you know, now maybe the hitters are used to him, you know, with pitching in this style. Last 2 games, in 11 and a third innings, he's given up 4 home runs. That's a big concern for me with Peacock. And if he has struggles at all, you touched upon, you know, that Euston's not hitting the ball right now. They've got a grand total of 7 runs in their last 4 games. They're not hitting at all. And if they fall behind at Yankee Stadium, this thing could just spiral out of control.
Marco, the last game we're going to talk about for Friday, the LA Angels with Griffin Channing going to St. Louis with Michael Wacha. The Angels, I mean, very tough. You have a home series against the A's, and then the Mariners, and then the Dodgers, then you go to Tampa Bay, and then you go to Toronto, and now you're going through your third city in St. Louis. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, the way the Angels are playing right now, I can't jump in front of them. They're just playing good baseball. You look at this team, they've got 7 wins out of their last 9 games. They're playing tonight, so we don't know what the result of that is yet. They're hitting the baseball. They've actually had some games where they had to go to the bullpen, and that's always been something that you've held your breath with, and they've held on and won. I look at the pitching matchup here. Griffin Channing, you know, he's going to be facing St. Louis. Being an interleague game, St. Louis is not familiar with him, so advantage to Griffin Channing. But
doesn't the same hold true with Wacha against?
Well, Walker's been around for so long.
Okay.
Channing's a rookie. Okay, so they've definitely have met.
Let me ask you this: as you say that, is there any disadvantage to a rookie now having the bat as well in St. Louis?
Well, obviously, with the interleague, that gives a slight edge to the National League with the batting. But I don't put it as a big enough advantage because, you know, the pitcher's batting in the National League too. He's used to it, but still, most of the pitchers suck that are batting. But speaking of sucking, let's go to Mike Wacha. This is a guy that has not pitched well this year. Now, he pitched so bad that they ended up sending him to the bullpen for 2 outings. After the couple starts in the bullpen, they gave him a start again. He had a great outing. So they said, oh, all right, he's got his head straight. You know, that was the right thing, sending him, changing, you know, maybe whatever it was, mechanics, whatever, got his mind right. Second outing, back to his old stuff. He got a 4-inning start against the Mets last week, got tagged for 6 runs. 5 of them earned. Not good. And here's the thing, and this is the problem with Wacha. He's not dominating the hitters, okay? Got a higher whip, but this is the
higher? You mean 1.91 whip at home is not good?
No. It's not. And here's the problem. In 60 innings pitched this year, Ralph, Wacha's got a strikeout to walk ratio of 56 to 35. You've got less than a strikeout per inning. He's right near that, so we can live with that. But you're putting, you know, you have half as many walks. You got more walks, you know, over a walk in, you know, every half inning. You're putting a guy on. It's not a good number. You can't dance around it when you don't have dominating stuff. You leave guys on base, they're going to get home somehow. And that's what's been the problem with him. The St. Louis bullpen's not been good this year. I think, looking at this game, I don't trust St. Louis, but I don't know that I want to pull the trigger there because I really don't trust the Angels bullpen. So given that, given Wacha's problems, given the way the Angels are hitting the baseball, given the fact that even if Channing Griffin's good, I'm probably only looking at 6 innings from him. I'm looking at the over in this one, Ralph. I don't know how you are, but that's where I'm at.
Well, I had a double look at these numbers when I was looking at Griffin Channing's numbers. In May, he had a 2.57 ERA with a 0.93 whip. That makes you an elite pitcher. Now, what if I told you in June he has a 1.06 whip, almost exactly the same. Mm-hmm. He has a 20-1 strikeout to walk ratio. So his ERA was 2.57 in May. Give me a guess of what his June ERA is with a 20-1 strikeout walk ratio and a 1.06 whip.
Well, it should be very dominant. It should be in the range of, again, around 2 or even less.
5.50.
Yeah.
A couple home runs. Everyone that got on base scored. So, you're looking, and this is where you go back to the regression to the mean. Which is the normal? Is it the first month? Is it the second month? And that's where you have to look. But if you have a 1.06 whip and you have a 5.5 ERA, that just means that you've gotten many bad breaks. You've only given up a handful of hits, and those guys all have scored.
I would also, and I don't have it in front of me, but I would go back and look, and this is something we talk about with the young pitchers. Wonder if any of those bad outings that he had in June that he faced the team for the second time, because we always talk about the hitter. The pitcher has the advantage over the hitter first time.
Well, this
through
is St. Louis, though. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. So it's going to be the first time. But just saying the difference in his numbers, that's something to look at if, whenever he does get back into American League play. All right, Ralph, that covers our stuff for the Friday night baseball. That means we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at
head-to-head. It's a Ralph versus Marco battle.
It is. Where our best bets, you're not going to like it, guys, because in the last break we asked, and we're on opposite sides. So we're going to have the debate, and then you guys can tell us which side you like. Chime in and leave us some comments. So we'll be back with that best bet battle from Ralph and myself here on the WagerTalk Podcast. Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. Before we jump into this week's best bets, I've got a special offer for all of our listeners. It's summer pricing at WagerTalk. We've got, this runs, Ralph, until football season starts late August.
No.
When's it go?
August 1st.
Oh, August 1st.
Preseason football starts August 1st. So We're committing to doing it through July.
Okay.
And then we'll play it by ear when football starts, because, of course, football is a different story, and the weekly packages need to change because of football being involved.
Absolutely. And what we're offering during the summer specials is a 7-day package. Normally $119. You can get it for $69. No coupon needed. $69.
Any capper, any 7 days.
Any capper, any 7-day package, $69. We've got special pricing on our 3%, 4% plays. A 3% play normally sells for $20. During the summer special, they're going to be priced at $12 instead of $20, and 4% plays, instead of being priced at $25, you can get them for $15 during our summer pricing. All right, we teased it a little bit. Let's talk about it right now. Ralph,
well, normally we give you best bets.
We are giving them best bets. They just happen to be on the same game. And unfortunately, they happen to be on opposite sides. That doesn't happen often. And guys, full disclosure, when we come in to do the games, the podcast, I don't know what the other guy's best bets are, and they don't know mine. And unfortunately, we found out kind of on air that we were going to be opposite each. Well, we were going to be in the same game, but we are opposite. So we're going to both state our cases, and you guys can decide who's right or wrong. And, chime in, leave us some comments. Would love to hear from you guys, and we'll be tweeting out the link to the show.
Marco and I have an adult beverage or two bet on the result of this game, so very important for us.
Yeah, very important, yeah. And I want to tell you how our boy Ralph works, okay? There's 2 strip clubs here. There's more than 2 strip clubs, but
it's an adult entertainment facility.
It is.
What are you talking about,
okay,
a strip
all
club?
Right. Well, the one adult entertainment facility runs the specials on Fridays where they have open bar from 3 to 6.
Well, let's mention it. It's Crazy Horse 3, Cofield and Company, happy hour, 3 to 6. It's on Russell, right across the stadium.
Yeah.
It follows Cokin, you and I's show from 2 to 3. So from 3 to 6 on Friday, they're live at the Crazy Horse 3 on Russell. $5 food specials. And from 3 to 6, an open bar. Yes, from 3 to 6, an open bar. You heard me right.
You heard him right. So Ralph said, we'll bet drinks. He says, if I lose, I'll take you to Crazy Horse 3, and I'll buy you all your drinks. If you lose, you take me to Sapphires and buy me all my drinks. Well, Sapphires doesn't have a free open bar from 3 to 6. Thanks, Ralph. You're good. You're a good buddy. I don't know what I'd do without you. All right.
This is not an endorsement for either facility.
All right. Have you been in either facility?
No, I've never been to one of those.
Never been to one of those? Oh, my God. His nose is growing, guys. All right, Ralph, state your case for the San Diego Padres on Friday night. You've got Eric Lauer against Joe Musgrove. And,
well, I am going with my Cleveland kid. Eric Lauer played against my son in high school, and I watched him numerous times. He played first base and pitcher for Midview High School, so it's a career I followed, as he's advanced. And, he's in a situation now where his ERA is very, very misleading. His ERA is 4.60. His WHIP is 1.36 on the season, but he's had 2 starts at Colorado where he's allowed 13 runs in 5 innings. So if you take out 2 Colorado road starts for the year, Eric Lauer has a 3.68 ERA and a 1.14 WHIP. Now I'm looking at, and by the way, his other road start in the last month was at Yankee Stadium. He allowed 1 run and 4 hits. So it's not like he hasn't had quality road starts just at Colorado. I look at San Diego. They're 17-17 on the road. Well, for the New York Yankees or Houston, that's a bad record. When you have an average line of a dog of plus 127, 17-17 is a very good record. Pittsburgh, 2-10 against lefties their last 12 starts. And then you look at Joe Musgrave. Yes, Joe Musgrave had an incredible opening month, a 1.54 ERA. But in Joe Musgrave's last 9 starts, his ERA is north of 7.0. Marco, overnight line on Friday on this game?
It is the Pittsburgh Pirates minus $1.14 with an over-under of 8.5.
So you are getting San Diego with Eric Lauer on the mound, basically at a pick'em, against Joe, the let's give the money away Musgrove.
All right. First of all, and you mentioned that Eric Lauer of the home-road dichotomy, and you pointed out that 2 of those starts were in Colorado, but there were 4 other road starts, and he has not been good, Ralph, on the road. 7.81 ERA. The WHIP, 1.66. That's a problem for me with Eric Lauer on the road. And then, let's face it, the Padres, they're playing better baseball. They've had some big games, recently playing teams, in their division and so forth. They had that epic series in Colorado before returning home. That 4-game series, they spent the entire pitching staff in that 4 games. During that 4-game period, every pitcher on the San Diego roster got into a game except Joey Lucchesi, who was starting the first game after that 4-game series. He was the only pitcher on the roster that didn't get in there for the Padres. Now, we talk about the Pirates, and it's a situation where looking at Joe Musgrove, and if you just look at the last couple stats, I understand where you're going, Ralph, but do you know what's happened in his last 2 starts? Do you know everything that went on?
Tell me, please.
I am going to. 2 starts ago, Joe Musgrove at Atlanta. He goes into Atlanta on June 5th, June 5th. He pitched against Atlanta, went 8 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs. Then he comes back on June 10th at Atlanta, pitching back-to-back starts against them. only went 2/3 of an inning. Do you remember why he only went 2/3 of an inning?
No, I don't.
Okay. He gave a batter some chin music in that first inning. The umpire tossed him. No warning, nothing.
Well deserved. I mean, the guy's a punk. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Okay. You throw your pit, you eject him in the first inning is insane. Was I on the Pirates that night? Yes, I was. I lost my pitcher in the first inning, go on and lose the game. They had to go with the bullpen, and it changed the whole series for the Pirates because, you don't expect to bring your first guy in out of the pen in the first inning, not even warmed up anything. You got to get there. So what the Pirates do, it was a 4-game series. They brought Joe Musgrove back in game 4 of the series, the final game of the series, the getaway game, and he started that game, went 4 innings, was pitching well, but then hit the wall in the 5th inning. Gave up, I think, 4 or 5 runs in that inning, and then went on for the loss. Was just a situation that, maybe they went an inning too long with him, after coming back quick. Yes, he only pitched, that 2/3 of an inning on Monday, but the fact is you get yourself ready for that start. You go through the pregame warm-ups, you go out, you pitch, and it just disrupted your stuff. The Pirates gave him an extra day off between that start and this start. I expect a pissed-off Joe Musgrove on the mound on Friday night for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Padres coming all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. This is a spot where I think the Pittsburgh Pirates are priced right, and they are going to get the win on Friday night.
Well, you stated your point. Now we'll leave it up to our listeners, and then we'll have a result about 10 p.m. on Friday.
Yeah, but you know what? Well, 10 p.m. we'll go and settle up the drinks because we can't go from 3 to 6 because the game hasn't played yet.
That's past my bedtime.
It's past the free time is what it is for Ralph. What a guy. I love him. He's my man, Ralph. Always looking for the plus EV angle. I got to give you credit for that. Hey, guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I want to thank tonight's guest, William Bernanke. Big thanks to Ralph Michaels joining me in studio and breaking down the games with me. And, of course, Mark Seidel behind the counter. Makes us sound good. You should hear what we sound like in real life. It's not good. Big shout out to the boy in Michigan, Johnny Detroit, and all of the crew that helps there in Michigan. A little shout out to Missy and Reno. And, of course, you guys that listen, if it's not for you, we wouldn't be doing this podcast. And you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Be notified right away when we upload a new episode. Also, you can listen to us on Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and all of the major podcast outlets. And for myself, Marco D'Angelo, and Ralph Michaels, till next week, let's cash some tickets. This has been the WagerTalk Podcast.